Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Welcome to all of our members, subscribers, and viewers from all across the world. In tonight's live stream, we're going to be talking about Israel's inability to intercept the Hizbullah drones. And that was very evident from the recent successful attack that they conducted against an Israeli base, where Israel confirmed that they had 70 casualties, 4 of whom were killed during this attack. I'm going to also be talking about the latest developments from Lebanon, the supposed US embargo on Israel and the ultimatum that they're giving Israel, and the increased and more tense feud that Israel is having with France. But I'm going to start off with this drone attack. Firstly, Israel has been trying to increase its capabilities in intercepting the drones that are coming from Hezbollah and their missiles. They have a certain success rate when it comes to interceptions. However, they are failing miserably when it comes to drones. Now, they have reported that they took down some of Hezbollah's drones, but the majority of them appear to be successfully going through Israel and conducting operations without any trouble whatsoever. In certain cases, Hezbollah will launch certain missiles to keep the Iron Dome in Israel's air defense systems busy and then launch the drones. However, I wanted to share with you a recent article that was published in one of the Israeli websites following a research regarding the drones and why Israel is finding it difficult to intercept them, and it's not looking like they have an answer to that very soon. So we had this article on an Israeli website called Makor Rishon saying the disaster at Golani Air Base, why it is difficult to intercept drones, and how Israel is coping. The UAV disaster near Benyamina yesterday, in which 4 IDF soldiers fell and 61 others were injured, revealed to the Israeli public in the most painful way the enormous risk that this means of warfare brings with it. The most burning question that floated the painful event was how the UAV was not intercepted, and moreover, how no alarm was sounded earlier. We looked at why it is more difficult to locate the UAV and intercept it, how Israel deals with the UAV threat, what are the plans for the future, and whether we can learn something from the way Ukraine dealt with the massive UAV attacks from Russia. Hezbollah mainly uses the unmanned aerial vehicle that reaches ranges between 400 and 700 kilometers and is capable of carrying out tens of kilograms of explosive material, said Dr. Yehoshua Kaliski, a senior researcher at the National Security Institute, in an interview with the First Source, or Makor Rishon in Hebrew, in which he detailed all of the weapons in the hands of Hezbollah. This morning, he wrote on the Institute's website, there is difficulty in intercepting UAVs mainly in view of the difficulty in early detection and identification due to their small dimensions, low radar signature, ability to maneuver and evade while moving on changing routes and in complicated terrain. For these reasons, according to him, from time to time, there are infiltrations of UAVs. Now, when it comes to the from time to time, it's the majority of the time from what we're seeing so far from the Lebanese resistance. It's not from time to time. The majority of the times that Hezbollah send a drone to carry out a certain attack, they are successful with that drone attack, whether they send them on their own or if they send them after a barrage of rockets on Israel. And that has been evident many times when many Israelis reported and recorded drones coming from Hezbollah entering Israeli airspace and very close to the borders with Lebanon, where Israel has a lot of forces and of course radar and detection systems. And there were no sirens, and they were just filming the UAVs passing by. He continued, following on, from Dr. Kaliski's words, the first challenge that the UAVs pose to the attacked country is their small size. Their radar signature is tiny, so it is difficult to locate their exact location and direction. In addition, the lower they fly, the more difficult it will be to deal with the UAV, both in terms of locating it and eliminating it. If it flies close to the ground, it will be hidden by a terrain route of mountain ranges and wadis or valleys. And in addition, radars work similar to bats. They transmit radio waves and determine the location of objects according to the reflection of the waves. But in low flight, the radio waves will also hit the ground and mislead the radar. To produce the UAV, Hizbullah uses materials that damage the acoustics of the detection systems, explained Talbari, director of research at the Alma Center. This is a center that is focused on researching Hizbullah, a research and educational center for Israel's security challenges in the north. In an interview with Rishon Source, or Makor Rishon, the same newspaper that we are quoting now, the flight capability of the UAVs is also different because they take advantage of the topography. In addition, it is possible to launch a UAV from anywhere, even from a house. Go find it. Another challenge lies in the fact that in an interception by a fighter plane, the closing speed, i.e. the speed at which the plane comes close to the UAV, is significantly higher than that of the UAV. The fighter plane must slow down a lot and then hit it from the top to the bottom, usually by firing several shells at the drone. The risk posed by the UAVs also stems from the level of accuracy. Unlike most of Hezbollah's rockets, the UAV is very precise in relation to the target at which it is aimed. On the other hand, UAVs can usually carry a smaller amount of explosive material so that its impact aiming to cause the least damage, Barry told us. One of Israel's ways of coping is electronic warfare. According to estimates, one of the manifestations of Israel's use of electronic warfare against the threat of UAVs is the creation of electronic masking that makes it difficult for them when the same disruption is the one that causes malfunctions in the navigation software inside Israel since the beginning of the war. There are also more sophisticated uses of electronic warfare, some of which are secret. And here they have an alarm here, enemy aircraft intrusion. That's probably another drone. They have live updates on the Israeli websites. Probably another Hezbollah drone going in now. In the attack in April, Iran launched nearly 200 drones at Israel at once. The way in which Israel managed to destroy them was by using sensors and radars that were located in foreign countries, Saudi Arabia and Jordan, so that the different directions from which the radio waves of the different radars came, they managed to create a reliable picture of the area in real time. In the case of Hezbollah, the story is more complex in this regard. Or, as Kaliski wrote, the drones from Lebanon arrive in Israel in a short time, so that the time period for their detection and interception is extremely short. Our territory may suffer incidental damage from crashes of the UAV or the interceptor missile. The tragic case in Benyamina, they mean the attack that happened a couple of days ago, proves that in Israel, because of the small and populated area, the margin of error is zero. In other words, Israel does not have the privilege to miss an interception, and the issue is technologically challenging. He continued, the UAV that Hezbollah launched on Sunday relies on internal navigation systems and maintains a fixed trajectory, so it has a high level of immunity to communication disruptions. Despite the challenge, the IDF succeeds in intercepting the vast majority of UAVs. Again, doubt that. In the last year, the IDF purchased systems additional to electronic warfare for this purpose. Israel intercepts the UAVs with the help of fighter jets, helicopter, gunships, Iron Dome, says Kaliski. Ability to disrupt the electronics of the UAV. When combat helicopters intercept UAVs, they rise to the relevant altitude and wait until the UAV reaches firing range using a cannon or missile. Another method is of shooting down a UAV that we will refer to later as using a counter UAV. Israel's air defense systems are among the best in the world, if not the best, but there is no system capable of providing absolute protection. In addition, it must be understood that we are facing a tough and sophisticated enemy. When Hizbullah launches drones and rockets, it is not only trying to hit us directly, but also test our defense systems in order to perfect its weapons so that it will be able to bypass them in the future. Dozens of models that are consistently being perfected in order to bypass the defense systems. Today it was announced that the Ministry of Defense is examining 8 new technologies for intercepting UAVs in cooperation with Rafael, Elbit, and the aerospace industry, the German-Swiss arms giant Sig Sauer, and other companies, the genocide cartel companies. Among the technologies tested were also interceptor drones and advanced long-range interception technologies. Along with the developments, the independent technologies may also be able to be held by our ally, who has been dealing with many thousands of UAVs for 2.5 years. So they are trying to the best of their ability, but what they're confirming here is that they are not really successful, and they're not providing an answer apart from the fact that we are testing new technology. Ukraine's last Minister of Defense, Oleksiy Reznikov, revealed that at the end of 2022, they approached Israel and suggested that it come and learn more about the suicide drones that exploded in their territory as part of the technological cooperation that would help Israel prepare for the threat of Iranian drones. Do you see who Ukraine cooperates with? Do you see who Zelensky collaborates with and helps? According to Reznikov, our requests were not taken seriously. There was no real response. Several months ago, Ukraine's ambassador to Israel, Yevhen Kornichuk, said last year, right after the Netanyahu government was sworn in, I brought a large part of an Iranian drone to Israel as a souvenir from President Zelensky. Ooh, he's generous with them, Zelensky. I said that if the cooperation between the countries does not deepen, Israel will also have a problem, basically. According to Kornichuk, in the last year, Ukraine has been developing self-made suicide drones that exploded on the Martyrs that Russia launched almost on a daily basis. According to the ambassador, in the last 6 months, success rate of the interception was between 80 and 90%. It appears to be an exaggeration as well from Ukraine too. An article in the Wall Street Journal reviewed this method of interception, although it did not confirm the fantastic success rates of the Ukrainian ambassador claimed. He called it successful and added, the main attraction of this method is the price. While surface-to-air missiles cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per unit, such UAV costs only $700. So, Israel, in short, is admitting that it has no real answer so far to Hezbollah's capabilities when it comes to their drones and UAVs. Another thing here is that Hezbollah, they have more than one drone, they have more than one UAV, they diversify their attacks against Israel with them, and with the case of Almas or Diamond, they used a drone that has a camera, detects everything, records everything when it lands, when it explodes, or if it launches missiles before it lands on the target. This was used a couple of times on some Israeli bases in the north. However, with the recent attack, Hezbollah did not publish an image of the UAV traveling, but only being launched. They published footage of the missile barrage that they sent initially to engage the air defense systems, and later their drones that were released, they launched at least 3 of them to Israel. And again, there were no sirens, and they reached their targets, and they caused a lot of damage. The second thing that I wanted to talk to you about today, we had a statement coming from Sheikh Naim Qasim, the Deputy Secretary General of Hizbullah, and he made some interesting statements in his speech. One of them was the fact that we are entering a new phase. This new phase, according to him, is about hurting Israel. Sheikh Naim Qasim, Hizbullah has regained its field health, and we will return the raging beast to the fold, or the raging animal, or whatever it is, grab it by the rope and take it back to the barn or fold or whatever it is they called it. So they are threatening Israel. And what is the new phase called? The phase of inflicting pain on Israel. So he said we ended the era of the supporting front, and now we are at a phase of inflicting pain on this enemy. Hizbullah Deputy Secretary General Sheikh Naim Qasim confirmed today on Tuesday that Hizbullah is strong and has regained its field health, announcing that there are no vacant leadership positions in a televised speech. Sheikh Naim Qasim said in this context, if you want to be reassured about Hizbullah, I will tell you that the party is strong, despite the harsh blows after the pager and what happened. We have regained our health, restored our organizational capabilities, and put in place alternatives, noting that the field confirms this development has occurred. As a matter of fact, to elaborate on that, we haven't seen a decrease at any point, even at the height of the Israeli attacks. So even when they were carrying out the pager attacks or the target assassinations, Hezbollah was still targeting them and increasing its capacity. And now again, we're talking about the new phase of inflicting pain on the enemy. The party is strong with its fighters and capabilities, strong with the cohesion of the party and the Amal movement and this public that works together in solidarity with each other, with all strength and determination. Strong with the allies, the noble media, the supporting associations and cooperative government. Strong with the national unity that has been revealed, and silence the discordant voices until they are no longer able to speak. Strong with the popular embrace, strong because it was founded on piety and at the hands of the great leader, Sayyid Hassan Nasrullah. May God Almighty be pleased with him. He continued, Hizbullah has the right to target any place inside occupied Palestine in order to blame the occupation, because the latter is targeting all of Lebanon. Noting that we will choose the point that we see appropriate. There are no longer points within the equation because the Israelis opened this equation. The enemy itself helps us strike it. How? We send a missile and the anti-aircraft missiles move. The remnants of the anti-aircraft missiles land on settlements and cities. This is a blessing because there are now repercussions on the enemy because of the anti-aircraft missiles. He added, our planes go and our missiles go, and the sirens sound everywhere. This is an expression of the impact on Israeli society. We will focus on targeting the enemy, the army, its centers, and its barracks. Referencing to Israel's boasting about entering hundreds of meters into Lebanon, he said it was delayed for 2 weeks and could not advance forward. The youth are waiting to join more and more, knowing that in the first week on the front edge, 25 people were killed and 150 were wounded. But of course, the Israelis acknowledged some of the dead and wounded. Of course, not all of them. Israel will try and hide as much as possible. A week ago, we decided on a new equation, called it the equation of hurting the enemy or inflicting pain on the enemy. Rockets are now reaching Haifa and beyond Haifa as our master wanted, in reference to Sayyid Hassan Nasrallah. You saw these strikes reaching Tel Aviv, and also last Sunday alone, the Israelis admitted 100 dead and wounded. And of course, when they say 100 dead and wounded, this definitely means more. And that's very accurate, because Israel, usually sometimes you can tenfold the numbers. The qualitative strike in Binyamina alone resulted in more than 70 dead and wounded. And this shows the resistance, decision, and ability. On Monday, we were also able to deliver our missiles to Tel Aviv. 2 million settlers went into shelters in Greater Tel Aviv, and 194 towns and settlements went to shelters. Ben Gurion Airport stopped working. This is all part of the equation of hurting the enemy, and this will continue. What the Mujahideen have accomplished in the field during the last 2 weeks was greater and better than they expected, because the mission of the resistance is not to stand as a regular army preventing an army from advancing, but rather the mission of the resistance is to pursue the enemy, the army, and carry out operations against it wherever it enters. We started 2 weeks ago to equalize the field on the front edge, and the Mujahideen confronted the Israeli enemy from multiple places in Kfar Kila, Adaisi, Yarun, and Mais al-Jabal. We are facing a raging monster that cannot tolerate the resistance, preventing it from achieving its goals, but we are the ones who will hold its reins and bring it back to the fold. Noting that the Secretary General, His Eminence Sayyid, may God Almighty be pleased with him, built a solid resistance with faith and trust in its Lord, and it has prepared its equipment. Its fighters have hearts that are ready for a precious life, and they do not fear death. As for the enemy, because it is bankrupt and because all capabilities it has are of no use to it, it went on killing members of the Lebanese army, killing the UNIFIL, went on blowing up churches, places of worship, and mosques. It attacked aid convoys carrying out the flag of the International Red Cross, to the point that the UNRWA commissioner was assessing the general situation, said that the agency had never been subjected to, was subjected to since its establishment. Where are the emergency forces? Where are the United Nations? Where is France, Britain, America? Where are they? They always tell us they must rely on international resolutions. We must rely on international resolutions, and there is no international resolution that the Israelis can abide by. They do what they want, and they do not respond to anyone. These were some of the main things that Naim Qasim, the Deputy Secretary General of Hizbullah, said. Meaning, again, the resistance is fine. They are continuing. They entered a new phase, and everything is still calculated. They have the capacity, and as we discussed in the first article, that confirmed from Israel that it's failing to intercept the drones from Hezbollah, and the fact that the drones from Hezbollah are causing them a big headache. Everything is confirmed from Israel. The confirmation is coming from Israel, not just from Hezbollah. Which leads us to the next point. Firstly, we're having a bit more back and forth when it comes to France. Macron is saying now, Israeli Prime Minister mustn't forget his country was created by a UN decision. Emmanuel Macron is criticizing Netanyahu again, and Netanyahu is not sitting down quietly. He is continuing to respond. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu should not forget his country was created as a result of a resolution adopted by the United Nations. French President Emmanuel Macron told cabinet on Tuesday, urging Israel to abide by UN decisions. Tensions have increased between Netanyahu and Macron, with the French leader last week insisting that stopping the export of weapons used by Israel, Gaza, and Lebanon was the only way to stop the conflicts. Like we say in Arabic, Sabah al khair, good morning. Did you just wake up now? France has also repeatedly denounced Israeli fire against UN peacekeepers in southern Lebanon, who include a French contingent. Mr. Netanyahu must not forget his country was created by the decision of the UN, referring to the resolution adopted in November 1947 with General Assembly for the partition of Palestine into a Jewish state and an Arab state. Therefore, this is not the time to disregard the decisions of the UN, he added. Netanyahu on Sunday called on the UN to move 10,000 strong peacekeeping force, who includes 700 French troops deployed in South Lebanon, out of harm's way. Later on Tuesday, Netanyahu hit back at Macron's comments, saying that the country's founding was achieved by the 1948 Arab-Israeli War, not a UN ruling. A reminder to the President of France, it was not the UN resolution that established the State of Israel, but rather the victory achieved in the War of Independence with the blood of heroic fighters, many of whom were Holocaust survivors, including from the Vichy regime in France, Netanyahu said in a statement. So, digging at France, almost saying they were Nazis, as if, the Zionists did not collaborate with the Nazis with their Havara agreement and, this whole joke of, Zionism versus Nazism. They worked hand in hand. The Nazis were talking about a final solution to the Jewish question, and Zionism came and handed them the final solution to the Jewish question on a golden plate and with a silver spoon as well. And it's not just France now, it's also the United States of America. The United States administration are now saying, oh no, hold on a second, Israel, what are you doing? The United States administration is giving Israel an ultimatum now. What is this ultimatum? Well, they're saying, they're warning, apparently, and we'll talk about this warning and what their warnings mean. U.S. warns Israel to boost humanitarian aid into Gaza or risk losing weapons funding. Blinken is worried. Blinken is worried, ladies and gentlemen. He wants the aid to go into Gaza. The Biden administration has warned Israel that it must increase the amount of humanitarian aid it is allowing into Gaza within the next 30 days, or it could risk losing access to U.S. weapons funding. Ooh, dangerous stuff. Secretary of State Antony Blinken and Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin warned their Israeli counterparts in a letter dated Sunday that the changes must occur. The letter, which restates U.S. policy towards humanitarian aid and arms transfer, was sent amid deteriorating conditions in northern Gaza and an Israeli airstrike on a hospital tent site in central Gaza that killed at least 4 people and burnt others. A similar letter that Blinken sent to Israeli officials in April led more humanitarian assistance getting into Palestinian territory, State Department spokesperson Matthew Miller said Tuesday. But that has not lasted. In fact, it's fallen by over 50% from where it was at its peak, Miller said in a briefing. Blinken and Austin thought it was appropriate to make clear to the government of Israel that there are changes that they need to make again to see the level of assistance making it into Gaza comes back up from the very, very low levels that it's at today. For Israel to continue qualifying for foreign military financing, the level of aid getting into Gaza must increase to at least 350 trucks a day. Israel must institute additional humanitarian pauses and provide increased security for humanitarian sites, Austin and Blinken said in their letter. They said Israel had 30 days to respond to the requirements. The letter was not meant as a threat, of course not. How can you threaten the chosen ones? White House National Security spokesperson John Kirby told reporters the letter was simply meant to reiterate, the sense of urgency we feel and the seriousness which we feel about the need to increase, a dramatic increase of humanitarian assistance. An Israeli official confirmed a letter had been delivered, but did not discuss the contents. That official, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss a diplomatic matter, confirmed that the U.S. had raised humanitarian concerns and was putting pressure on Israel to speed up the flow of aid into Gaza. The letter, which an Axios reporter posted a copy of online, was sent during a period of growing frustration. The administration that, despite repeated and increasingly vocal requests to scale back offensive operations against Hamas, Israel's bombardment has led to unnecessary civilian deaths and risk plunging the region into a much wider war. 50,000 unnecessary deaths. 50,000, 100,000 wounded. The rest, lost their limbs, no medical aid, dying because of lack of treatment, dying of hunger, dying of starvation. That's like unnecessary. Notice the terminology. It's very important. And again, the Biden administration is increasing the calls. They're continuing and saying that it's a requirement for the United States to continue the support for Israel just before the US presidential election in 3 weeks. Well, what did that really say? Well, firstly, you can tell everything by this here. It must increase the amount of humanitarian aid it is allowing into Gaza within the next 30 days, or it could risk losing access to US weapons funding. So increase, meaning what exactly? Give the Gazans an additional tomato each a month? That's an increase. Secondly, or risk. What's this ultimatum? And this, I wanted to quote this primarily because it was circulating like on social media, embargo, and the United States is threatening. It's all a show. It's all a joke. It's all a joke. There's no substantial anything behind it, because they have supported this genocide from the beginning to this day. They gave Israel the legitimacy to begin conducting a genocide. They refused ceasefire calls from Brazil, Russia, and China. They legitimized the attack on civilians, calling them human shields. And now this Nazi foreign minister of Germany is saying, well, yeah, Israel, no, we're going to have to continue sending them weapons because they need to be able to destroy these people. Well, nothing's changed. They're still supporting them. Now, they're still talking about Iran. They're still talking about Iran now, and, they're reviewing everything. But it doesn't appear that we have something solid so far. There have been talks online and on some mainstream media and newspapers that Israel is waiting for the elections, and anything before the elections would not include the nuclear facilities or the oil sector in Iran, something that Benjamin Netanyahu denied, like he denied that he is no longer attacking Beirut, like he denied accepting a ceasefire when the President Joe Biden himself said he accepted a ceasefire. So we're witnessing a role play here between the United States and Israel. The United States is acting like it's doing something, when really and truly they are enabling, facilitating this genocide, supporting it completely with no boundaries and no limits. And again, we're still having the same warnings coming from Iran that if they would attack us, we will respond, and we will respond harshly. And this is what I want to share with you in this live stream. I'll open the space up for you. Check if you have any questions, any input for me. Black Ty, thank you very much for your super, much appreciated. And if anyone has anything for me, if you wouldn't mind highlighting it, just so that we wouldn't miss many of your comments. And thank you so much, everyone. Welcome back to another live stream. Tori is saying, Salam Mahmoud, some Western geopolitical analysts are still claiming that Hamas is a US proxy. What is the use of this smear? I call that lame analysis or malicious analysis. So lame or unsubstantial or very, very lazy, because they clearly haven't read through the history of, firstly, Palestine itself, the Palestinian National Liberation Movement, the history of the Palestinian resistance movements, and the history of the establishments of Hamas. Some of them refer that to a period where Israel, and again, we're talking about talks and analysis too, attempted to weaken the PLO, and by its attempts to weaken the PLO, they did not mind other movements getting stronger, meaning they did not go and fund them, or the United States came and funded them. They did not mind them getting stronger. And don't forget, Hamas as a movement started as, a charitable organization, and then that led to armed resistance in 1987. And that was following their breakup from the Muslim Brotherhood movement, because they were ideologically, of course, they're heavily influenced by the Muslim Brotherhood, but they have central command. They do not belong to the Muslim Brotherhood. That was at the time, at least, in Egypt, and that was primarily because of their decision to start fighting Israel. So basically using armed struggle against Israel. In that time, Israel was targeting Hamas, Israel was killing Hamas members, Israel was imprisoning them, Israel was executing them, and using the Palestinian Authority after they had the Oslo Accords to go and hunt them. It wasn't as bad as it is now when it comes to the Palestinian Authority and the days of Yasser Arafat, but there still was a collaboration between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, and Israel was still hunting them down. Plus, Israel tried to destroy them many times. They waged wars against them. They brought global coalitions against them. And now they want to ask everyone to come and fight Hamas with them. So Hamas is a natural movement stemming from the oppression of the Palestinian people, likewise with the other, or similar to other Palestinian liberation movements. The difference between Hamas and others are their strength, their popularity, their organization, their levels of organization, and the fact that these people are relentless in their resistance for Israel. And they said many times, we're willing to sacrifice our whole movement in the cause of liberation for Palestine and serving the nation in general. So again, lazy analysis, unsubstantiated, and the quotes that they take or refer to are again ideas and thoughts, but you need to dig in further to establish a true idea about who they are and what they are. And I hope that clarifies from Tori. Thank you so much for that. And Angela Brody, my sister, thank you very much for that. Much appreciated. And glad to see you back. Let's go to your next one. Cisco, the 2024 Nobel Peace Prize winner, Tomoyuki Mimaki, survivor of Hiroshima, says the people of Gaza working to help the Palestinians should get the Nobel Peace Award. Absolutely right. And I think it was the mayor of Nagasaki refused to allow the Israeli ambassador at the time to come and attend the memorial. And do you know what happened? The Western enlightened countries, the beacons of human rights and democracy, went and protested against him, against the people who suffered the nuclear attacks from their genocidal establishment. Why didn't you bring the Israeli? Why? He's only committing a genocide, you know. So it's not surprising. That's the moral thing to do. That's the brave and correct thing to do. And Japan knows very well who's behind Israel. Marvin is saying, have you heard anything about Jeremy Lofrado from Grey Zone being held by the IDF? I think I heard the report. I didn't look into it too much. It's not surprising whatsoever. It's very risky doing anything in Israel. You have people who are reporting from there being threatened. Israeli teachers, Israeli professors, Israeli Jews get imprisoned for having certain views that oppose the general government narrative when it comes to the genocide. You're talking about Israelis, let alone someone coming from abroad criticizing Israel in a heavier manner. So long for the only democracy in the Middle East. It's risky doing things there. They assassinated, they brutally murdered 160 journalists in Gaza. They murdered with cold blood Shireen Abu Akleh 2 years ago. We didn't have this war at the time. She was in Jenin exposing their crimes, a sniper, a bullet in her head. And again, you know, nothing happens after that. They get away with it. They go and attack her funeral. Going from a Christian hospital in Jerusalem. Don't you remember these scenes? That's what Israel is about, journalism. Israel's opposition leader, Yair Lapid, who spent most of his life as a journalist. Do you know what he said in the beginning of the war? The media should not be objective. Being objective serves the Hamas. So you only say what we have to tell you. Well, what a wonderful journalism that is. You know, bring only our version of events. Why do they do that? Because they are a thief nation. They are a nation of thieves who faked everything. They faked their identity. They faked the history. They committed atrocities, stole lands, murdered people, slaughtered people, and they thrive in the dark. So whenever anyone comes and sheds a little bit of light, they kill him. They're the forces of the dark. That's Israel, the forces of darkness. And that's why, I mean, I even found it absurd, the fact that they're continuing their genocide and barbarism constantly in open air, you know, being in denial about the fact that everyone is seeing their horrors on a day-to-day basis, because it's exposing them further and further. It was in Israel's best interest to try and stop it from the get-go and still have some sort of sympathy from some people. It doesn't matter how ignorant they are, but some, you know, but they didn't do that. Mind over matter, according to Sky News UK, so according to a lying mainstream media outlet, okay. Israel has told the US that they will not attack Iran's oil nuclear facilities. Are they lying? Well, we heard the reports that they said that, but again, lying, of course, they lie more than they breathe, so they could be lying. I mean, you're talking about a hyper-pathological lying state, so they could be lying. Netanyahu lied many times. And the military spokesperson and everyone. So it's not surprising. So, and again, look, they could try and avoid them because they know They know what's coming after that, or at least they might have an idea by the taster that they got on the 1st of October from Iran. And they think that by attacking something else, that somehow Iran would, treat them kindly. It's not going to happen. Iran will be responding. If Israel has a response against Iran, Iran will be responding back. While ideal, that's from Kyle, would a one-state solution lead to a civil war? Do you think a shift into a two-state solution by the resistance would be a better strategy? Thank you and salam. Well, firstly, you don't have a side that is accepting a Palestinian state. The Israeli side is denying the existence of Palestinian people. They don't believe that there is a Palestinian people. They believe that the Palestinians are Arabs. And again, they establish this idea, these false narratives, on pseudo-facts and their pseudo-history. They'll come up with all sorts of random claims, as if the immigrants that came from Ukraine and Russia and Belarus and Poland and changed their names in the mid 20th century are the true natives of the land. You're talking about a thief, lying nation. They stole everything. So they don't want the Palestinian state. It's all been a joke. There were reports that the man who entered the negotiations with them, Yasser Arafat, said that I was fooled into the Oslo Accords. He himself who started it. But we still have traitors continuing down this path from the Palestinian side. And it's not like the resistance refused the idea of a temporary two-state solution. And the reason I say temporary, because it wouldn't address all of the core problems of the Palestinian people, including primarily the right of return. This is like Israel's red line. We don't want a right to return. And plus a state, they don't want a sovereign state. They want a municipality that they can control, dictate, and choose whatever happens with them. It needs to be demilitarized. It needs to be this and that. They want to dictate everything. Why? Because they're arrogant, they're supremacists, and they are entitled. So if they think they can tell the Palestinian people and other nations how to live, the typical Western establishment arrogance that has been passed on to this B-child of the British Empire now under the US patronship. So it's not possible to reach a two-state solution with them. And a one-state solution is not like it's going to come peacefully, by the way. Why? Because they are still enabled with their supremacy and with their mass terror, and it will come after ongoing resistance to them. And will that make everything magical and utopic the next day? No. Will that end racism the next day? No, it wouldn't. Did racism end in South Africa after apartheid fell? No. Some people still believe that apartheid was better in South Africa. But fact of the matter is we had a solution. The global community as a whole supported the shift to equality, yet now they're supporting apartheid and still supporting apartheid in Palestine now. So it's not that they haven't tried, it's not that they didn't offer the Palestinians, it's you're dealing with an entitled nation who think they are better than everyone else, and they despise everyone else and view them as below them. They dehumanize other people. They see themselves as a superior race, and everyone is below them. So how can we give them? Because they're below us. They below us as people, they are whatever it is. So why should we give them anything? And now Netanyahu's excuse to refusing any solution, to him, it would be like giving a prize to Hamas because they conducted the 7th of October. That led us to this situation. And again, his supporters from mainly Western countries are still enabling that, despite ever-growing resistance from the populations of the West, which says a lot about the state of the Western establishment in general and how undemocratic it is. And the virus, thank you so much for that, much appreciated. And OG, welcome to the channel. Thank you for your membership. Let's see. Gully, Mahmoud, do you see every part of the resistance joining the Iranian retaliation? Not necessarily, unless the Israeli attack on Iran is substantial to a level where Iran would ask for their participation. Because firstly, Iran doesn't need their participation. They are more than capable of inflicting destruction and pain on the genocide entity. And they can do the job with one or two operations. I mean, one ongoing operation, less than an hour even. But if Israel goes too far, and what's too far to Iran, I'm not sure what their lines are of too far, you might as well see the unity of fronts being activated with an all-out attack on the genocidal entity. Lydia, 1,000 baby slaughters before their first birthday. People burnt alive in tents outside makeshift hospital. Where is the horror? Well, it's everywhere, the horror. 17,000 children Israel killed. And that's called an infanticide, the mass homicide of children. People should use this term more often. It's not just a genocide, it's an infanticide. They kill children deliberately, burn them alive. And that's the state of the world we live in. People, some in the establishment supporting Israel, still justifying that, acting like they don't. And if it wasn't for the people exposing what's happening, and the same establishment knew what's actually happening in Gaza, they would still support Israel and wouldn't say a word. It's just because of the increasing voices in the West and in many countries against their own government supporting and enabling such genocide and going to such lengths to protect the war criminals. Alex, Firaz, salam, brother. Thanks for your great journalism. Thank you, my friend. Does Iran have any known space-based capabilities where they launch satellites, as far as I know? Many of their missiles go above the atmosphere, so you could call that space. So they do have space capabilities. You can say that they do have space capabilities based on that. And thank you so much for your super, much appreciated. Holly, do you think the thoughts will work? No, I think it's just a show internally for Israel to kind of try and reassure the Israeli public. You know, they're in panic now. So look, America sent us the thought. And again, there were reports that the thought was already there. So it is not going to be effective whatsoever. Sam is saying, Brother Mahmoud, do you have any logic as to why the US doesn't cause trouble in border countries but likes to flex muscle 1,000 miles away from its field? No, that's not correct. The United States administration caused so much trouble in countries with its borders or very close to its borders, Latin America, that they used to call our backyard. Our backyard. How many coup attempts? How many cartel supporting? How many democratically elected governments taken down? How many attempts to take down people who were legitimately elected? And recently, you saw the election of President Maduro. Immediately, attempts to delegitimize him and. When they got rid of the president of Bolivia, for purposes of planting people in order to reach precious metals necessary for modern day industries, Elon Musk himself had a tweet. We will coup whoever we want whenever we want. Look at the arrogance. Typical militaristic oligarchy. Mass scale terror. And they have the audacity to speak about democracy and human rights. So they have done that, and they still do in Latin America, and they also do that across the world. They are trying to preserve the state of the empire and preserve the US hegemony as much as possible. And Ron, thank you. And Sailor Jerry Swallow, thank you so much for your supers, much appreciated. And I hope you're all doing well. And El Chicano is saying, what is Saudi Arabia's current stance on the current situation this time, including having Saudi and Israeli diplomatic ties? Well, I think the best description of the situation when it comes to Saudi Arabia was the quote that was attributed to the Crown Prince, saying that I personally don't care about Palestine, I care about the people in Saudi Arabia. I mean, something that's questionable if he cares about the people of Saudi Arabia rather than himself, really. And all these fancy projects. They don't want problems in general. They are happy to have ties with Israel, although Saudi Arabia offered Israel a peace treaty and recognition from most, if not most, Arab and Muslim states, not all, in 2000 when Prime Minister Ariel Sharon was there, simply by just giving the Palestinians a state. And the Israeli Prime Minister at the time, Ariel Sharon, famously ripped this offer apart. Look at how arrogant. But Saudi Arabia is still open, still entertaining the idea. However, they're not quick to go there because it's Israel who wants the peace with them. And remember, and I always say that it's Israel that begs for recognition from Arab and Muslim nations. Why? Because like any thief, they want someone to recognize their legitimacy. So they know they stole the land and they oppressed the people. So they need someone to recognize them. You know, they recognize me, they legitimize me. I'm okay here, I'm fine. I'm a normal thing here. No, you're not. You're a nation of thieves who stole Palestine and expelled its original population and refused to give them equal rights. Problem over problem over problem. So Israel needs that very heavily, and they know a deal with Saudi Arabia would be very, very significant to them. And also Saudi Arabia, they will also use that to their leverage to a certain extent. It's not like they're in a massive rush. But if a deal comes on the table that would address certain things to do with peace or ongoing stability in the region, they would go for it. However, the proposals that they were given from Israel, according to reports that we heard, of course, did not satisfy the Saudis and did not convince them that they will lead to stability in the region. Like by having a fake Palestinian state or a municipality status, you know, with no sovereignty, demilitarized, no real genuine self-control and self-governing, that would cause more problems to happen. I am Muhammad. Turkey, Egypt, Jordan update. Well, Turkey, well, the president always talks, but we see no action. Egypt, they are preparing for war, but they're not talking much. They are very, very diplomatic to the last second, but on the ground, they are ready for war because they know they might be next, because the initial step was headed towards them in the early days with the expelling of the Palestinians and then going after them in Sinai as a pretext to have certain buffer or security zones in Sinai that will later lead to the control of Sinai and potentially Cairo to gain control over the Suez Canal. An idea that would get certain support from some Western countries, by the way. Jordan, not much apart from the king and the foreign minister saying, things are escalating and, the international community needs to resolve the matters. Again, similar talks are coming from Egypt too. We need to reach a solution. The king said, if they increase in Lebanon, we'll reach a regional war. So not much is happening. James is saying, Mahmoud, Professor Marandi said Iran only used 10% of its capability, meaning they could possibly launch 1,800 missiles. If so, how many missiles do they potentially hold? I think they used, of course, with all due respect to Professor Marandi, and he might know better than me, but it doesn't appear to me that they used even 10% of their capability in this attack. I think they could use way, way more. They've used less than 10%. And they have the capacity to launch 1,000 or 2,000 missiles. Take it this way. If Hamas on the 7th of October was able to launch 5,000 missiles and shells on Israel in half an hour, what can Iran do? And I know you're talking about bigger missiles and a bigger distance, but they have the capacity to do more. And I mean, if it's a reference to, again, one attack at a time, one single attack, it could be close, but I think they could even do more than that. I think they can do more than that in one go. I think they have the capacity to do that. And how many missiles do they potentially hold? Hundreds of thousands. Because they definitely have millions of drones. They're a massive exporter of drones. Some reports say they have 3 million drones at varying levels. So we could be talking about 7-figure numbers of missiles, but it could be less than that. Because don't forget, the missiles of Iran are their strategic attack weapon. Unlike Israel, with an air force that is used as the strategic attack to strategically attack countries. So Iran, because the missiles are their strategic attack, they carefully and thoroughly enhanced their missile capabilities because they know that's their strong point. And Ryan is saying, I think Netanyahu is waiting for Trump to get elected to attack Iran. I think Trump will send troopers to fight in Gaza. Americans think Trump is for America. He's for Israel, just like Biden. Trump is a fake. Trump is a slave to the Zionists. America first, America first. What's America first? And you're going licking shoes of the Zionist lobby in America. What's American about that? What's American about supporting a genocidal entity thousands of miles away? What's America first? That's Zion first. Say it as it is, Zion first. Netanyahu first. Don't say America first. Don't lie. And make America great again. All lie, all a show. They're slaves. But that's not necessarily going to happen if he comes to power. He was known to have good relations with Netanyahu. But both parties show willingness. I mean, we have support now with more deployment of American troops. He's going to be no different, although he previously, used to say that, we need to focus on our economy, bring some of these people back home. But when it comes to Israel, it's different. And thanks again for that, Ryan. Muhammad, is Turkey all talk and no action? What will it take for them to get involved? Well, what I would say is that it is confirmed by the statements of the Turkish president that they are more talk than action. And more talk than action is something dangerous because it creates the illusion of someone willing to do something that they are not genuinely willing to do, misleading the people in the meantime. Of course, they have supports in other ways and aid and talking about the resistance, legitimizing the resistance, but the level of action did not reach anywhere near the level of talk and threats of a military action. What will it take for them to get involved? Only if their national sovereignty is attacked. They might see that as a pretext, especially seeing their ties with the NATO and with the United States. Apart from that, I do not see them participating. I do not see Turkey participating. Bujar is saying, Mahmoud, the elections are soon. Can you dedicate a live stream or video on the need to defeat a duo party and promote Cornel West and Jill Stein? It's now or never. Well, I had a program with my friend Kevin Barrett where we spoke thoroughly about the US elections and about the two-party system. And we spoke thoroughly about that. You can go ahead and watch it on my podcast section, the podcast. It's a playlist. In terms of the need to defeat the duo party, again, is something I constantly talk about. Promoting someone here and someone there, I don't do that. I don't promote anyone. But I would definitely call for, if of course people want to listen to me anyway when it comes to making decisions about voting, I would call for people not to vote for people who have blood on their hands. It's as simple as that, really. And again, some people would say, oh, well, they have no chance. For example, Jill Stein and Cornel West, although they've shown way better positions, Jill Stein, she was harassed too. You cannot even compare their positions with Harris and Trump. However, the risky thing, and that's what people need to be wary of, is the fact that the constant talk is about the two-party system. Although you might have other candidates with some potential. And it starts with breaking that narrative. Breaking the narrative by firstly speaking about these people, speaking about Jill Stein and Cornel West, number one. Secondly, not falling for the trap, because don't forget, when they constantly, how does the media work? They constantly repeat the same thing. Repeat the same lies up until you believe them, and up until you lose hope and think, oh, it's inevitable, it's hopeless, and why should I waste my vote? And. So you need to break this equation and go and actually vote for the alternatives. And whether it's now or never, listen, but there's always hope for things to change, and changes don't necessarily come very quickly. And Angela's saying, Mahmoud, why do guys want to expand several countries? Too many are exiting isn't real. Too many, yes, millions are leaving Israel for good. Many people in Israel are done with the idea of Zionism. That's why they left. And why do they want to expand to several countries? That's where we talk about the United States. And it's the United States policy. Israel is the United States. The United States is Israel. The United States wants to have full control over the Middle East and have no one challenging them ever. And they are pushing Israel more and more, having this theater of disagreements here and there with them, when really and truly they are the ones who are interested in all of this, to have full control in the region, make Israel the undisputed power in the Middle East, take down any challenge, dictate how things are run, and send a big message to China and Russia by having the biggest leverage on some of the most important oil-rich and energy-rich areas in the world. And thank you for that, Angela. And Zay, thank you so much for that. And Tokyo Homes, thank you very much as well for your supers, much appreciated. Jimmy Eyes Mahmoud, do you think Iran is prepared against the GBU-43 bunker buster? Trump used one in Afghanistan as an airburst, if I recall. Scott Ritter said they were designed to penetrate Iran's nuclear sites. Well, they are dangerous. However, Iran knows they're dangerous. And when you talk about Iran, you're not talking about 1, 2, or 3 meters, or 50, or 60, or 70 meters under the ground. No one truly knows the real extent of how deep they are, but there are reports that you're talking about 500 meters under the ground with certain layers above them that are made to repel certain explosion attempts. For example, Saddam Hussein in Iraq, he had some of his underground locations with multi-layered rubber, concrete, multiple things to try and absorb and repel the bunker busters. Now, of course, they can still face problems, but Iran has a lot of preparation. It doesn't have its nuclear project in one site. It's distributed everywhere in really far locations, hidden deep into mountains, hundreds of meters under the ground. It's no easy task. It is no easy task. Plus, that means the United States is putting itself as an aggressor on Iran, which means the United States can say goodbye to all of its bases and all of its troops in the Middle East and can welcome a participation from Russia and from China. Chocolate Pudding, welcome back. He said, what do you think of June Part 2? Do you mean the second attack of Iran? That was very intense, very accurate, and very successful, and very effective. And welcome back, my friend. And thank you so much for your super. And Amir is saying that Iran attacked radar footage of them. It was a radar. They attacked radars. They attacked military bases, military airports. They attacked hangars where Israel houses the F-35s and protects them. So all of that is very, very significant. And we'll wrap it up there. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in for another show. Thank you so much for all of your participation. Apologies if I, of course, didn't reach all of your comments, but I really, truly appreciate all of them. Thank you for everyone who sent supers. Much appreciated. That's Chocolate Pudding, Tokyo Homes, Zay Kauhi, Ryan78, Sailor, Jerry Swallow, Ron S, Alex Shirazi, The Virus 455, Angela Brody, and Black Tie. Thank you so much for your support. I'll hopefully have a video, and Chris Murphy, thank you so much for that as well, my friend. I'll hopefully have a video afterwards. Hopefully I will be with you tomorrow as well. If we have anything that requires immediate live streaming, I will, God willing, inshallah, be with you. Apart from that, stay safe, stay blessed, take care, and I will see you soon in the next video. Peace, everyone.